I started filming this and then the entire world decided it wanted to drive past my house. Also really need to find a solution for this, but I can't tell if I'm in focus or not. So if I'm slightly blurry, I'm really sorry. Motorola has released some pretty interesting smartphones recently with its cool foldable and now the Edge series. The Edge 20 Pro, is a more traditionally shaped device that, starting at £550, is competitively priced and more in line with what consumers need versus what they crave. Thanks to Vodafone for sending this one out. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and this is my review of the Motorola Edge 20 Pro. Let me just go over the specs quickly to give you an understanding of what we're looking at here. So the Moto Edge 20 Pro has 6 to 12 gigs of RAM, 128 to 256 gigs of storage, a Snapdragon 870 SoC, a 6.7-inch 1080p 144Hz OLED display, a 108 megapixel main camera with an 8 megapixel 5x telephoto camera, a 4500 mAh battery, and 30 watt charging, all starting for about £550 for the 6x128 model. That is competitively priced. I mean, that comes in at around half the price of an iPhone 13 Pro Max. And whilst you might not get the quality of one of those, you do get an awful lot of features for your money. I found the Moto Edge 20 Pro quite refreshing as it doesn't boast a hugely performant feature set, nor does it demand a high price, but what it does do is give you what you need and then some for the right kind of money. I found performance to be, in and out of games, very, very good. Snapdragon 870 is pretty high end. The 888 is the fastest one, I believe, at the moment. The 870 is sort of a build on the 865, which was a previously top tier chip. It is very good. It's got a good game performance, so the graphics are very good. The standard CPU is very good. It supports lots of sort of video recording resolutions, photo taking resolutions, stuff like that. It's some of the features that you would get in a really high-end flagship chipset, but it just doesn't cost the same amount as something like an 888. The same goes for battery life. This thing lasted me 2 days on a charge. Granted, I'm far from a heavy user. I spend most of my time at a desk on a computer, both at home and at work. But if you're in an involved job like mine, then you don't tend to use your phone all that much and you get a solid 2 days out of it. Granted, that's with around 60 to 70% brightness. That is with some Bluetooth connectivity, about an hour a day, mostly on Wi-Fi with a little bit of LTE here and there, but that's really not a heavy workload. I tend to get 2 to 3 hours of screen on time per day. I don't use my phone an awful lot whatsoever, and so that enabled me to get 2 days. The software is pretty clean as well. It resembles stock Android, but with some cool changes that I find are actually really good. Motorola has been doing this for a number of years now, where it takes a very clean, stock almost looking Android skin, and then adds a few little features that really do elevate the usability of the thing. A prime example of this is the always on display. Now, it looks fairly similar to other always on displays, but actually it's functional. It's not just something to look at. You can hover or hold your finger on the notifications, which come in icons, to dig deeper into what the notifications are. They've been making really good use of OLED technology for a while now. I remember the Moto X back in the day was really, really good for this. The second generation was fantastic for this because it essentially took one of the best looking smartphones and made it even cooler with the fact that the always on display was so interactive. It's not just one of those things where you double tap the screen and then you're instantly into the lock screen. You actually get to use the always on display whilst it is an always on display. There is one caveat to the software though, and that's that Motorola isn't the best at giving out software updates. And for context, the Moto, the Edge Plus, released in May of 2020 and very recently got Android 11. It got it a lot later than the Pixel smartphones, which is to be expected, but I mean 6 months later. I mean, that is pretty late. And for most people, no one's gonna care. Like, the software's the software. However, for those who really want to get the most out of their smartphone for a long time, they want to keep their smartphone for 3, 4, 5 years, this probably isn't the one to get because of the fact that it's just not as well maintained. Motorola don't tend to keep their phones up to date for as long as, say, Xiaomi or Samsung. And even though this is a sort of flagship smartphone, be it very, very competitively priced, it really should be getting software support for a lot longer than it does. Talking of the hardware now, the phone favours larger hands. It is a big smartphone, and that doesn't just go for the screen. I mean, the buttons are really high up on the thing. The fingerprint scan is very high up on the smartphone, so you're sort of doing a lot of hand shuffling, but that fingerprint scanner does happen to be very, very fast. And the rest of the smartphone is pretty good as well. I mean, the camera bump on the back is pretty small and the glass back looks really nice in this blue colour. The bezels are pretty small as well, and the punch hole is both not invasive and is centered in the correct place in the middle of the smartphone. And that big display, the 6.7 inch OLED 144Hz, is very responsive, it's very smooth, and for those who spend a lot of time gaming on their smartphone and watching films, this is going to be great. It's nice and big, so you can watch sort of TV programs and even films on it. And when you're gaming, because it's 144Hz, as long as you're in a game that supports the high refresh rate, it does feel quite immersive and definitely very smooth. The 870 chipset does combine here as well to work really well. It's definitely not the smoothest experience on a smartphone, but it's very, very smooth for what it is. And, you know, it's £550. You're getting quite a lot here. Oh, and as I say in a lot of these videos, 1080p is more than enough resolution for a mobile display, and anyone can fight me. You know, I don't care. 1080p is great. This thing looks very, very good. More important stuff is, well, I guess refresh rate to some people, but also how bright a display gets, the grey to grey response times, stuff like that. That makes a bigger difference to the display experience than pure resolution. Devices not coming from Huawei, Apple, Samsung and Google tend to lack in the camera processing department. So how does the Moto Edge 20 Pro stack up? Well, the hardware is pretty decent. 108 megapixel main, 16 megapixel ultra wide and an 8 megapixel 5x telephoto. The samples are lukewarm, however. Okay, they're alright. There's a decent amount of dynamic range and the colours are relatively accurate, but there is a distinct lack of sharpness across the board, and the 8 megapixel 5x optical periscope is a little subpar coming from phones like the P40 Pro, S21 Ultra and Mi 10 Ultra that also have periscope cameras. However, look at the prices of the aforementioned phones. Yeah, there's no comparison. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with the cameras on the Moto Edge 20 Pro. They're not the best in the world, but you do get heaps of versatility thanks to the 3 majorly different focal lengths, and for this money and given the rest of the phone, not bad. And that's important when you look at smartphones like this. You have to take into consideration the rest of the smartphone. If this was a camera focused smartphone, I wouldn't be buying it, but it's not. It's cramming as much as it can into a price that's actually quite affordable for a lot of people, because many will be buying this thing on contract and subsidized in certain ways. It doesn't actually cost all that much. You're getting a very versatile camera stack, a really good screen, very good performance, very good battery life, very good software, albeit the questionable future plans with the updates. If you're not a photography snob and if you're not one of the people who needs to have the latest and the greatest smartphones, then the Moto Edge 20 Pro is going to be more than enough for you. As long as you can put up with a big smartphone. I probably couldn't own it because it's a bit too big for me, but other than that, I can appreciate how good of a smartphone it is. And with that, I want to thank Vodafone for sending the device out for me to review. I've really enjoyed spending some time with it because it's been a while since I've reviewed a Motorola smartphone on this channel. I don't know how long, maybe I'll put something on the screen here, but yeah, it's been definitely a while. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please do like, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons for being continually supportive as well. Hopefully the noise going past hasn't been too much of a distraction. I'm trying to isolate the audio as much as I can with sort of a dynamic microphone and stuff like that, but we'll see how that goes. As always, I've been Ryan Thomas and I'll catch you later. Peace.